Hey everyone, as you can tell by the title of the board, we're actually going to talk about system of equations, or known as simultaneous equations. So for this video, right, we're actually going to look at the A-math syllabus part, which is basically to solve two variable, two equation, simultaneous equations by hand, alright? Because for the H1 and H2 math syllabus, you'll be dealing with more 3 variable, 4 variable, 5 variable equations, and you are actually allowed to use the GC to solve them. Alright, but for more on the GC part, calculator solving part, in the next video, let's just look at the simple basic techniques. Alright, so let's say we have the first example, x plus y equals to 3 and 2x plus y equals to 6. Alright, so let's label this as equation 1, let's label this as equation 2. So let's just say the first method, right, which is by substitution. Alright, so the idea of substitution is basically make one equation become the subject of one of the variable and then take that and substitute it to the second equation. Alright, so let's say you want to make x a subject now, which means you're going to substitute x. So when you substitute x, is basically 3 minus y. Now what do you do here? Let's label this as equation 3. We can now substitute 3 into 2. This will then give us 2, 3 minus y plus y equals to 6. This will then give us 6 minus 2y plus y, which is basically minus y, equals to 6, y equals to 0. Because y equals to 0, we know that x equals to 3, right, based on equation 1. If you don't like to substitute x, you can substitute y. So you make y the subject, you give us y equals to 3 minus x. We then now let's label this as equation 4 now, sub 4 into 2. Right, you don't want to substitute back into the same equation because, you know, that just becomes like a cycle. All right, so now we have 2x plus 3 minus x equals to 6. So we then have x equals to 3, y equals to 0. All right, now the second method is basically the addition or subtraction. The idea is that if you have a variable with the same coefficient in the two equations, you can just simply add or subtract them. Alright, can be plus 1 and minus 1, basically the magnitude must be the same. So in this example, we notice that the coefficient of y is actually the same, right? Is 1, right? So what we can do is, instead of just doing the substitution method, this method is actually faster for this pair of simultaneous equations, which is to basically take equation number 2 minus equation number 1, right? So when you take equation minus another equation, the left minus the left, the right minus the right. So on the left, we have 2x plus y minus x minus y to give us x. On the right, we have 6 minus 3 to give us 3. Then we get x equals to 3. Now we then have y equals to 0. So let's take a look at another example. So now let's say we have 2y plus x equals to 3 and 2x plus y equals to 9. Alright, now what do you notice is that if you're going to use the addition or subtraction method, you need to change the coefficient of either x or y, because you now notice that the magnitude of the coefficient of x is no longer the same, the magnitude of the coefficient of y is no longer the same. Alright, so we'll talk about that later. Now let's just look at the first method of substitution. Alright, so in this case, if I substitute x, we can have x equals to 3 minus 2y. This will then give us equation number 3. Therefore, we can just now sub 3 into 2 to give us 2 of 3 minus 2y plus y equals to 9. This will then give us 6 minus 3y equals to 9. 3y equals to 6 minus 9, which is basically minus 3. We have y equals to minus 1. Now with that, we have y equals to minus 1. We can now put it back to equation number 1, which will be minus 2 plus x equals to 3. We have x equals to 5. So then the answer is basically x equals to 5 and y equals to minus 1. I'll leave you to practice substituting y. Now we look at the plus or minus method. Alright, so let's say that we want to now change the method. So we want to use the plus minus, and we're going to use subtracting x. So now we notice is that the coefficient of x is 2 in equation number 2, whereas the coefficient of x is 1 in equation number 1. So I'll now change equation number 1 to have 2x instead of just x. To achieve that, we can only multiply, right? So we can just simply add a variable x, because if you add 1x on the left, you have to add 1x on the right. So we have to take equation number 1 times 2. We can write this down, or you can just simply write 4y plus 2x equals to 6, and let's just label this as equation number 5. Now, what you notice is that now we have the magnitude to be the same, right? We can now take 5 minus 2, right? To give us 3y on the right, oh sorry, on the left, and minus 3 on the right to give us y equals to minus 1, and therefore we can have x equals to 5. I'll leave you to try to remove y and have x as the first variable to find the exact answer, and then followed by finding y. All right. So this is the two main methods to solve systems of equation or simultaneous equation for two variable linear equations, two variable two equations. So yeah, a very simple technique, and yeah, that's about it.